Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Shadowwraith and today I'm going to be going over my top 5 picks for Death Guard units in Warhammer 40k 9th edition. Now, before I get started, remember this is my personal list, my top 5 picks, and if you don't agree with one of these or any of these, you can feel free to mention down in the comment section down below, or if you agree with everything you can also tell me how amazing I am. Moving on, quickly, we're going to jump straight into the number 5 slot, and we're going to go with the little boys, the little lords, the Nurglings. Yes, Nurglings, they're absolutely fantastic for jumping on objectives and sitting there, because they're relatively cheap. 18 points of base is not too bad, especially when you've got quite a few of them. That's the only downside, you've got to bring quite a few of them, so at least 9 in a unit I would suggest, otherwise they're just going to get shot off. Now there is Troops Choice, which is quite nice, and I'm going to go off the assumption you're bringing them with Death Guard, because that's what's in the title. So, what do we get for this 18 points? Well, Movement 5, Weapon Skill 4+, BS 4+, even though they don't shoot. Strength 2, so you're not going to be really hitting that hard. Toughness 2, ugh, horrendous. Wounds 4 per base, 4 attacks, which is not too bad. Leadership 7, 6+ save. But we don't care about the 6+ save because they've got a 5-up invulnerable save because they are demonic. They've got Mischief Makers, which is why they're in my list. Basically, when you set up a unit of Nurglings during deployment, they can either be set up in their deployment zone or anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from the enemy's deployment zone. What makes that quite nice is you can plop them straight onto an objective. Turn 1, obviously you can't score turn 1, but they're there, set up, and if your opponent has deployed in such a way to deal with your main army and there's maybe an objective over to the right flank that has kind of been ignored, you can plop some Nurglings there to hold on to it right up to the point where you can stick something a bit tougher on it if you want. So yeah, that's why they're on the list. They've got Disgusting Resilient, but it's a worse version. So if the damage characteristic of the weapon they're getting hit by is over 1, so 2 or more, they don't get it. But damage 1, so we're talking about normal bolt guns, las guns, things like that, they get their Disgusting Resilient, which makes them a pain in the bum to shift, because 5-up Invuln, 5-up Disgusting Resilient. Very tasty. You have got the option, of course, to bring them as a patrol detachment or something for demons, where you get access to the stratagems that can help them out, like Nurgling Infestation. And if you have got a blob of 9 or 12 of them, each one of them that died for 1 CP, you roll a dice on a 5+, they come back to life. It just makes them even tougher. But then that starts costing you more command points because you're bringing in other detachments. Number 4 slot, I have given to the Blightlord Terminators. Now, they are really good, absolutely fantastic unit. Not only can they deep strike in because they're in Terminator armor, but they can bring some serious firepower. I have seen a lot of Death Guard lists, and not many of them do not bring at least 1 squad of Blightlord Terminators, because they're not only good to drop on an objective if you need to, but they're very good for giving a lot of threats to your enemy to think about. So especially if you've got a slower army that you're trying to march up the board, if you drop a couple of squads of these guys in, the enemy will then start trying to focus these guys down, and they are tough as nails. Only movement 4, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5 though, 2 wounds, 2 attacks, leadership 8, 2+ save. 2 wounds is rather mediocre in 9th edition now that we've got Primaris Marines rocking about with like 3 wounds, but hey ho. They can bring pretty much every gun you can think of. Blight launchers, combi bolters, combi flamers, combi everything pretty much. Plague spewers, Reaper autocannon, Bale sword, bubonic axe, or a flail of corruption. Now, you've got 2 builds for these that I've seen people do. You can either run them with the spewers and go full shooty with a spewer in it, in a squad of 5, because you can bring 1 in every 5. Or you can bring flails of corruption to absolutely beat people up in combat. The third option, actually, is you just give them all combi bolters, because they're rapid fire too. So, now imagine in your head you've got 10 of these bad boys, drop it in, and let's say they've just all got combi bolters or combi flames or whatever, but we care about the combi bolters. For a mighty 3 command points, you can make them an absolute unit that just guns down pretty much anything, or 4 command points if you've got another one spare. I'll put it through this way. You can give them, for 1 CP, virulent rounds, basically giving them the plague weapon keyword. So you're now re-rolling 1s to wound. If you've got someone with Arch Contaminator nearby, you're re-rolling all failed wounds, and any roll of a 6 to wound, that is unmodified, is resolved at AP -4. Okay, on top of that, you can give them relentless volleys. So 2 CP for a 10-man squad, or if you've got 5 or less of them, it's only 1 CP. Basically, it turns their combi bolters to rapid fire 3. You will be in half range because you're Death Guard and you've dropped in. So hopefully my math is right, but that is 60 shots firing in. Hitting on 3s, of course, and you are wounding on whatever it is because they're strength 4. And if you're feeling pretty cheeky and you've got a tougher opponent ahead of you, you can stick Veterans of the Long War on them. So they're +1 to wound. Any rolls of a 6, -4 AP, and you could be re-rolling as well. Now, you can imagine why that's quite tasty. Swiftly moving on, we have got the number 3 slot, which I have given to the Plague Burst Crawler. I do love these guys, they are fantastic, especially if you bring 3 of them, because that seems to be the magic number. They can fill 2 rolls, pretty much. For 170 points, you can do the Assault Vehicle variant, where you give them the 2 Plague Spitters, and I tend to stick with the Heavy Slugger, because why not, it's free, and yeah. It's free. But yep, and you just ram them up the board and spray everyone, and if they're in range or outside of the minimum range, you can use your mortar. And people are scared of them, so they'll try and shoot them. And they're tough as nails because they start out at movement 9, weapon skill 6+, because it's a tank, ballistic skill 4+, toughness 8, which is insane, 12 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 8, 3+ save, okay? They have got disgustingly resilient, and they've got a 5+ invulnerable save. You can put them in the poxmongers Plague Company, and you can have the relic Ironclot Furnace to give them, as long as they're within 6 inches of the guy with the relic, a 4+ invulnerable save. If you can do that, absolutely run that Plague Company. Or the other variant you can do is Artillery Long Range Support, okay? Basically, swap out the Spitters for Entropy Cannons. Sit them at the back of the board, give them some nice line of sight for the Entropy Cannons, and you want to start off by whapping on Accelerated Entropy for 1 command point. You pick one of your Plague Burst Crawlers, and all other Plague Burst Crawlers within 7 inches of that one gets the following ability. Plague Weapons for the Entropy Cannons. The minimum you can possibly roll on your d6 damage is a 3, because 1s and 2s for the damage count as a 3. Definitely worth 1 command point because it stays in play. Insane. On top of that, it's now a plague weapon. So, you stick a Chaos Lord at the back, Arch Contaminator on that bad boy, and you're re-rolling 1s to hit, and re-rolling all failed wounds. Very tasty. Very, very tasty. Plus, they're very tough. And you can run whatever Plague Company you want with them, because your artillery is sorted. Now to number 2 slot. One of my favourites, well, that's why it's number 2, is the Mephitic Blight Haulers. Oh, these guys are invaluable. 100 points is a steal because you get a missile launcher, a multi-melter. It's insane. And a bar spurt. I mean, sure, but we're bringing it for the multi-melter and the missile launcher. So you've got the blast option with the missile launcher, firing the 2 different profiles, frag missiles and crack missiles. Everyone should know what they do. D6, heavy D6 shots for frag, heavy 1 for crack missile, 1 strength 8, 1 strength 4. The strength 8 one is -2 D6 damage, the other one's only 1 damage, but it's got blast. So yeah, I bring 3 of these, stick them in the unit, they're +1 to hit, because their stats are movement 10, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4+, or 3+ if they're in a squad of 3. Strength 6, toughness 7, 8 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 8, 3+ save. Not only do they have these weapons at their disposal, they're also disgustingly resilient, which is crazy. They're also demonic, so 5+ invulnerable save. So yes, you can bring them in the poxmongers list, give them a 4+ invulnerable save if you want, which is very popular. They explode a little bit better on a 4+, so 7 inches everyone takes a mortal wound. And yeah, tri-track doesn't matter, but foul stench. Enemy units must subtract 1 from any hit rolls that target this unit in the fight phase. So they're a little bit tougher when you go against a melee army. But the best ability ever, Putrescent Fog. Friendly Death Guard infantry units entirely within 7 inches of a Blight Hauler gain the cover special rule for their armor saves. Insane. So you can have 2+ save, Plague Marines. Some stratagems for you to use. I love Parasitic Fumes because basically it's a 7-inch aura. Enemy units that are within that 7-inch aura, well, anytime they get attacked, the attacks against that enemy unit are resolved at an additional -1 AP. So you've got Poxwalkers in combat with them, all their attacks are now -1 AP because that enemy unit is within 7 inches of your Blight Haulers. Now, moving on to the number 1 slot, the golden slot, the winner. I mean, it's no surprise here really. Plague Marines. Plague Marines are absolutely phenomenal, especially with Death Guard, obviously. You're basically playing for a tougher Space Marine, okay? So, movement 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, 1 wound, attacks 1, leadership 7, 3+ save. But of course, they are getting 2 wounds soon. In December, they should have their new codex, so that should be in there. Their points will go up a bit, but who cares? That's awesome. Yeah, I love them, absolutely love them. You can give them with all sorts of things. So you can go, I'll give you the 2 builds that I run, shooty shooty or punchy punchy, or stabby stabby should I say. Shooty shooty is pretty nuts because if you give them relentless volleys, they've all got rapid fire 2 weapons. Okay, that's insane. Plus you've got the 18-inch rapid fire because you're Death Guard. You can whack overwhelming generosity on them to add 6 inches to them, but that's only for plague weapons, which is why you use virulent rounds. Yes, we mentioned it before, give them plague weapons, okay? And any natural roll of a 6 to wound scores at, well, it's resolved at AP -4, which is nuts, okay? Because you can pump out a hell of a lot of shots with a squad of 20 of these guys. You can screen them with Poxwalkers or Cultists or whatever, screen them in some way, stick Cloud of Flies on them, and they can't be shot. It's pretty mental. Now the stabby stabby route, twin plague knives, okay? These are both rather cheap options, okay? You can give them fancy things like, I don't know, whatever you want. Flail of Corruptions in this build, or you can give them plague spewers, plague belchers, you know, blight launchers. Blight launchers are quite fun, actually. You can bring a lot of them. But I'm going for cheap, okay? Now, put it this way. You've got 2 knives, so now all your plague marines have got 2 attacks, okay? Very, very nice. If you charge or get charged or whatever, you get 3 attacks because you're Space Marines. On top of that, you stick Trench Fighters for 1 CP, and basically what that does is in the fight phase, as long as you have a Plague Knife or more, you can do an additional attack with a Plague Knife. So what's that? 4 attacks? 4 attacks. Absolutely crazy. If you want to go all out, you can get some Psychers involved, stick Miasma of Pestilence on them to make them -1 to hit. On top of that, you can stick Blades of Putrefaction on them, so they're +1 to wound, and any roll of a 7+, so a 6, okay, does a mortal wound. And if you can, Putrescent Vitality to make them the sweet, sweet Strength 5, Toughness 6. Absolutely bonkers. Stick a couple of flails in there if you really want to really dish out maximum damage, but yeah. You gotta want to be screening these guys on the way up, similar to the way you do with the shooty marines. So, have a screen, stick Cloud of Flies on them, and run them up. As soon as you get into combat, you will see things melt and struggle to beat you up back, because you're toughness 6 at -1 to hit. Anyway, that is my top 5 units for Death Guard. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. Did I miss anything? Did I get it spot on? I don't know. Let me know. And if you did like this kind of video, do consider hitting the like button, and if you're feeling especially saintly today, or Papa Nurgle has blessed you with enlightenment, do consider subscribing. Anyway, even if you don't do any of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.